Mr. Hayes Anderson.
You go from ultralight to 5x power, and then your action is moderate to extra fast. So that's how you start matching up your bait to the lures you're going to use. Before we get too far into it, when you're out here, I fish alone a lot. I mean, like 90% of the time I fish alone. So in these, there's not a whole lot of margin for error. So if you fall, it's lights out. I mean, you get in real trouble real quick. So wearing PFD, always wear PFD. And I try to avoid places with lots of boat traffic. But if you're going to fish, like say Fisherman's Wharf or whatever, or any of those places where there's pilings and stuff in the water, and boats will just stack up on those pilings. I was out there one morning with some guys, and I think there were 7 or 8 kayaks with 5 or 6 boats all stacked up. And when the boat comes in pretty hot, they can't see. I mean, this thing's camouflage, the water's kind of brown color, so lighting and bright colored clothes. So that's my safety briefing for the day. Dominoes, live it, wear it, be part of it. Kind of talk about working the water column. We'll talk from working top down and then bottom up, depending on the time of year. Here in the South, you pretty much, when I'm working an area, if I'm trying to just pick up a bite somewhere, I'll start with the spinnerbait. Spinnerbaits, crankbaits. I'm not big on crankbaits just because I don't like digging them out of trees and stuff like that. But that's one of those places where the fish are in there, so you got to go in and I prefer like throwing swim jigs and stuff like that. And maintaining the colors. There's really basically only about 4 or 5 different colors you need when you bass fish. White, chartreuse and white. Throw crankbaits, maybe something like a fire tiger color or something like that, and black. I mean, there's not a whole lot. I don't vary a whole lot, and they seem to work. Particularly white and chartreuse and white. Those are two dead-on colors that work really well. And whether it be crankbaits, spinnerbaits, plastic worms. Plastic worms, I'll throw on those. It's either green pumpkin seed or black. I mean, those are kind of like my 2 go-to colors. Bait selection, I throw up. And I am not on their staff, but I'm going to pimp their stuff anyway. I like War Eagle spinnerbaits for a couple of reasons. I like their skirt colors, but the other reason I like them is because versus a lot of the other manufacturers out there, they hand tie their skirts and they use brass wire to tie their skirts on, so the skirts stay on longer. I don't know that they last any longer than, say, like a Strike King or whatever. Nothing, I like Strike King, so I'm not going to bag on anybody's stuff, but it seems like these particular skirts stay on better. Had to go back and tie skirts on. The skirt would still be in good condition, but it would come loose because the band would fail. So do that. So searching the water column, I'll start middle and then go to top. One of my favorite top water search bait versus a lot of guys will throw spinnerbait or a buzzbait. Excuse me. I throw a horny toad. I fish a horny toad like you would throw a buzzbait. And I have them in all different colors, but I use black. I don't care about water condition. I don't care about where I'm at. I could be in Alaska, and if I think there's going to be a top water bite, I'm going to try this. I throw white occasionally, but I think it's only because I got a deal on one. I was in Dick's, and they had them on the rack, and I was like, I'll take that whole rack and sell them to me for that $2.50, and it was like the area manager, and he was like, all right, so now I got a box full of white horny toads, and I think I just throw them so I can get rid of them, just so they get eaten up. But I search with these a lot. when I approach, I'll kind of jump back here. If I'm fishing new water, I tend to go to the creeks. I'll look for creeks and flats, anywhere where I think there's going to be a hump that I can fish. Fish a lot of like fallen trees, things like that. This boat doesn't have the fish finder on it, but if you get some kind of depth finder where you can find your structure under the water, you know, I use a lot of visual cues too. I try to be as instinctual in my fishing as possible. Use the area around you to help you fish. Use trees, creeks, birds. You know, if you see birds diving on bait fish, you know, I mean, it's pretty simple. But I search with these, and I also search with buzz baits. Along with buzz baits, real basic in colors: white, chartreuse and white, chartreuse and black. I mean, those are my. I've got other colors, but those tend to be my main colors I use, and I throw white and black in. And then there's different styles. There's double bladed. I'll walk through the crack houses and look. Oh, I need that. I need that. You know, you got like 15 different buzz baits, and you fish with the same one from Walmart. You know, and it's still kind of the way we do things. With baits and searching the water column, there is a couple of different types, and I'm probably going to get the classifications a little wrong, but as you look at, say, topwater baits, you have bladed baits and prop baits, like buzz baits. What I would call a wake bait, whether it's a jitterbug or a wake bait that kind of looks like this man's. If you don't fish this is something that'll work for inshore species, that'll work for bass, anything like that. You can get into bigger type wake baits, some that are just like floating swim baits, like small floating swim baits like this, and then wake baits that will actually carry you'll have multi-jointed or single-jointed big swim bait type wake baits. And then you go into other baits too, where your other floating swim baits, and you'll start getting into larger swim baits that have a large presence in the water, make a big motion. These kind of scare people, because this looks like what most of us catch. So, but these work. I promise you, they work. But it's a different kind of attitude. You know, I mean, you're not going out there targeting 3-pounders. You're going for the lake record. You're fishing for the person who does with these. And then you get into the punker style baits and the walk and the dog style baits like these. You can get like the spooks, but then you can step up and throw the bigger ones like lunker punkers. But if you look at them, they're really not that much bigger. It's just it has a larger profile. It creates, when it's walking, a spook will walk maybe 5 or 6 inches as you're walking across. A punker will walk a foot. So it's, you're weeding out some smaller fish, but I've caught little fish on these. I mean, they're all bad too. They really are. They'll fish about anything. And then there's also a slammer style bait. And this is all presence. This is just a big wake bait, is what it is. So it's another one of the baits in the wake bait class. Like I said, this time of year, I'm throwing spinner baits, any kind of subsurface baits, whether it's crankbaits, spinner baits. I throw a lot of swim baits right now. Subsurface, slow sinking swim baits. There we go. I got it. Something that will get down there and where you can maintain it and fish it real slow. That way the fish don't have to work too hard and they'll still come up after your bait. Once you ID a place, I'm a firm believer in knowing a couple of locations. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you fish a Big Creek Lake or you fish somewhere in Florida. Get to know 2 or 3 bodies of water so you can have some success, because it's all about confidence. It doesn't matter. All this stuff is irrelevant. Because if you don't think you're going to go out and catch fish, then you may as well give up. You know, because if you go out with that kind of heavy feeling in the back of your head, it's like, yeah, today you're going to be real pretty. It's probably not. But if you know that you have a location where you can go out and at least pick up a couple of fish, that builds your confidence. And then you can start playing around with different types of baits, different presentations. But you have to get comfortable and believe in what you're doing. So from the top, we drop down and go into the middle of the water column and start looking at crankbaits, like a build crankbait. Again, I don't get real creative. Just white. I like the lipless crankbaits in chrome for the blue back, but this just happened to be the one I grabbed. But lipless crankbaits. Right now, this time of year, this is a good search bait. A lipless crankbait is a really good search bait this time of year. And then suspending jerk baits like these, like this is a pointer, like a crab pointer SP. When you fish these, this is a different technique. And really, I need to say this, with any kind of technique, any kind of fishing technique, the best way to learn it is to leave everything at home and take one rod and one bait and go out and just work that bait. And if it's an unfamiliar technique, this is something I don't have a great deal of confidence in because I don't do it. You know, it's hard, you know, when you go out and you look at your rack of rods and you got like 15 rods and you got 8 boxes of tackle, and it's like, I think I'm going to take everything in there. I want it all. That way I can tie lures on all day long. But when you get into a different technique, for me, especially like jigs and swim baits, those are two techniques I firmly believe that somebody needs to learn how to do with no distractions. You just take your box of jigs and find where you're going to be punching mats or whatever technique you're going to work on, and go and just do that. Just do that one thing for that day or for that month or whatever, and learn that technique, learn to get bites. Because when you start working, especially like swim baits, big swim baits, it takes time to build confidence. It really does. Because it's not, you're weeding out small fish. You're going to be fishing locations where you're targeting large fish, and you're going to get skunked. And you just have to got to tough it out. And it's hard. I mean, we're all, you know, I can't speak for anybody in this room other than myself, but I am highly impatient, and I like to catch fish. So if I go out and I fish something like this and I'm not getting bit, and I got something else, you know. So fishing one technique and learning a single technique as you go out, then you start building your repertoire, and you can start being able to target, like right now, whether you're throwing an Alabama rig because they're feeding up for the spawn, or throwing jigs and learning how to punch mats and doing stuff like that. That all takes practice. The other thing, topwater frogs for it. And I throw toads, I'm going to back up a little bit. Toads and frogs, I consider them in two different classes. Toads are a solid body, and frogs, in my mind, float. So that's, you know, and then there's other frogs. There's like solid foam body frogs that will float with like kicker legs and stuff like that. 316 makes a really nice one. Kindu makes a really nice one called clone frog. I've got a few of those. Those are really cool baits. But this is my go-to frog right here. This is a Spro, just generic. Again, I don't, you know, with all that stuff. White, black, yellow, you know, I'm going to wear that out. I just don't really get too creative with my colors. And it could be to my detriment, but that's the way it is.